A chaotic fight breaks out in a Los Angeles nightclub. Gene Key, a man from South Korea, is attacked by a group of men. Mark, a South Korean security guard, steps in and stops the assault. This night is only the beginning for a man who will soon be known as champion. Gene Key and Mark share a long history. Gene Key knows Mark was once a world-ranked arm wrestling champion. Hoping to return home, Gene Key asks Mark to join an underground arm wrestling tournament held at the club. Mark agrees and begins training with him. They work through past conflicts while preparing for the fight. Mark stays calm during the tournament and defeats the defending champion in an upset win.
Ready, go! Now, 다시 싸워! 다시!
The prize money secures Gene Key's travel plans. The defeated champion lashes out and attacks Gene Key. Mark protects his friend and fights off the attackers, but the brawl costs him his job at the nightclub.
Nobody messes with my customers, do you hear? Get the hell out of my club.
Mark takes a mall security job but feels restless. After a call from Gene Key, he decides to return to South Korea. Gene Key picks him up in a sports car and shows him popular tourist spots. The display of wealth is a facade meant to convince Mark to keep helping. During the trip, Gene Key brings Mark to a nightclub. Mark cannot relax and ends up helping staff control the crowd. Later, Gene Key takes him to a hotel and gives him the address of his mother's house, which Mark has not seen in decades. At a nearby mall, a loan shark named Ju collects debts from clothing merchants. Gene Key offers Ju a deal to sponsor Mark in the National Arm Wrestling Tournament and place bets on him through an online gambling site. Ju sees profit and agrees to consider the plan. Mark visits his mother's address but finds two children, Ji-hyo and Tae-yong, living there with their mother Soo-jin, a merchant who owes money to Ju. Mark returns to the house later and meets the children again but learns nothing new about his mother. He follows Soo-jin to the mall but gains no answers. Eventually Mark meets Ju, who introduces him to Ji-min, a wealthy and influential man.
Go!
Impressed after watching Mark compete in an amateur fight, Ji-min agrees to fund him for the national tournament. With the sponsorship secured, Gene Key takes Mark to a Korean restaurant to celebrate. Mark hesitates at first, used to American food, but after one bite he keeps eating until he finishes a dozen bowls of the same dish. They return to their hotel, where each room has a massage chair. Mark resists trying it, but soon enjoys it so much he falls asleep. Despite the indulgence, Ju doubts Mark's skill and calls Combo, the top arm wrestling athlete in South Korea, to test him. Combo visits the nightclub and watches Mark compete. He quickly sees that Mark is on another level and could become the best arm wrestler in the country. Soo-jin, curious about Mark, quietly attends the match. Ju notices her and argues with her, a scene Mark overhears. Ju tries to create drama by proposing a match between Mark and Combo, but both refuse. Mark's calm refusal angers Ju. Gene Key worries that Mark's independence means he will no longer follow his lead. He suspects Mark's attitude is linked to Soo-jin. Hoping to motivate Mark, Gene Key visits Soo-jin at her store. Ju and his men arrive and confront him. Mark steps in, defeating Ju's men with ease. Before Mark can finish the fight, the police arrive and detain both men for questioning. Because Mark lacks South Korean citizenship, the police hesitate to release him. Gene Key claims Mark is a professional arm wrestler in town for a competition. To verify the story, the police challenge Mark to a quick game, which he wins without effort. As the situation calms, Soo-jin arrives with Ji-hyo and Tae-yong. She reveals she is Mark's younger sister, born to the same mother with a different father. She shows a childhood photo of their mother and explains that their mother died a year earlier. The revelation brings Mark and Soo-jin closer and helps Mark accept his past. After Ju ends the sponsorship, Mark and Gene Key lose their lodging and move into Soo-jin's house, which legally belongs to Mark. At first the new siblings feel awkward, but Mark's presence soon changes the atmosphere. He scares away delinquent students who used to loiter outside and intimidates the debt collectors who once bullied Soo-jin. When one collector who knows Mark refuses to fight, a newcomer challenges him, and Mark defeats him quickly. The next day both collectors stay away after seeing Mark step outside. But Ju refuses to let Mark walk away. Determined to keep control, he searches for a new fighter and signs Ji Kwang, an ex-convict known for doping and injuring opponents. Mark discusses the chance of another match with Gene Key. Ji-hyo and Tae-yong urge him to compete. Gene Key wants to raise Mark's reputation and arranges a public match with Combo, the top arm wrestler in South Korea. Reporters gather for the event. The match is intense. Mark struggles at first but overpowers Combo and wins. His family celebrates. During dinner, two bald students of Combo arrive and try to start trouble. Combo stops them and apologizes. Mark forgives them, and a friendship begins between the two athletes. That evening, Mark and Soo-jin talk about their mother. Soo-jin admits their mother loved Mark deeply and spoke of him on her deathbed. Jin-ki's plan to attract sponsors works in part, as the televised match gains attention, but no sponsors come forward. One morning, Mark drops Ji-hyo and Tae-young at school. A boy mocks him as a gorilla, and the boy's mother joins in, claiming Mark will never be a champion. Ji-hyo and Tae-young defend their uncle, and tell everyone he is the best arm wrestler in the country. Inspired, they ask Mark to promise he will win the upcoming championship. That night, Jin-ki invites Mark to meet his father, who is struggling with heavy debt. Jin-ki explains that a championship win would help pay those debts and stabilize his family. Jin-ki later learns Ju now manages Jeom-kwang and no longer needs Mark. Ju boasts that Jeom-kwang will crush Mark in the next match.
우리 마크가 진짜 이길 겁니다.
After training, Mark heads home and meets a crying boy. While comforting him, Mark accidentally damages a bus facility. At home, he sees Tae-young typing with skill and learns his grandmother taught him. This prompts Mark to check his phone for old messages. He finds one from his mother explaining who Soo-jin and her children are. The message shocks Mark. He learns Soo-jin is not his biological sister. She is a widow with two children whom his mother took in after her husband died. His mother raised them as family to avoid loneliness. Mark keeps the revelation to himself as he accompanies Soo-jin to their mother's grave. On the way they have a brief scuffle with a rider, but he stays by her side. At the grave he breaks down and asks for the truth. Soo-jin apologizes, saying she never found the right time to tell him. Shaken by her confession, Mark feels betrayed and walks away from Soo-jin and Jin-ki. Jin-ki follows, trying to stop him. They argue, and Mark accuses Jin-ki of using him for money. Despite the anger, Mark admits Jin-ki has become like a brother and agrees to stay. Mark spends time alone and reflects. He realizes that even without blood ties, Jin-ki, Soo-jin, Ji-hyo, and Tae-young are his family. Determined to make them proud, he starts training hard for the national arm wrestling competition. He even strengthens his right hand by pulling a used car. The day of the competition arrives. Mark meets Jin-ki and Combo at the venue, along with their students. Ju shows up with Jeom-kwang, who is ready to cheat to win. The crowd includes the sports minister, MMA fighters, and famous idols. Ji-hyo and Tae-young also appear after seeing Mark on television and come to cheer for him. The elimination round begins. Athletes display strength and discipline, but Jeom-kwang tries to injure his opponents. Jimin worries about Mark's chances and asks Ju to interfere. Backstage, Ju offers Jin-ki a large sum of money to convince Mark to withdraw. Jeom-kwang continues to hurt competitors, including one of Combo's students. Jin-ki brings the cash to Mark and explains it could clear his father's and Soo-jin's debts. Mark refuses. He says he will not quit and wants to prove himself. He tells Jin-ki to return the money and stays focused on the match. Soo-jin learns that her children went to watch the competition and rushes to the venue, leaving her store with a friend. Ji-hyo and Tae-young meet Jin-ki and repeat Mark's promise to become a champion. Their words move Jin-ki. He returns Ju's money and chooses to support Mark fully. Mark reaches the semi-finals and faces Combo again. Combo has trained hard, but Mark's hand strength from pulling cars gives him the edge. He defeats Combo and advances with confidence. As the round concludes, Jimin warns Ju to act fast, since Jeom-kwang's loss would bring heavy financial trouble and leave Ju to take the blame. Mark looks for Jin-ki after his match but cannot find him. He searches backstage and discovers Ju and his men have beaten Jin-ki. Furious, Mark fights them off, helps Jin-ki up, and tells him he was right to reject Ju's money. The final match begins. Mark faces Jeom-kwang, a larger fighter with a tattooed hand. Jeom-kwang tries to intimidate Mark and nearly breaks his thumb. The referee ties their hands to keep the match under control. The battle is grueling. Jeom-kwang's use of performance drugs gives him an edge, and Mark struggles to keep pace. He remembers his promise to Ji Hyo and Tae Young and refuses to give in. Jin Ki, Soo Jin, Ji Hyo, Tae Young, the police, and Jin Ki's father shout encouragement. Their support drives Mark to push past his limits. He rallies, overpowers Jeom Kwang, and wins the national title. Mark becomes the first champion of the National Cup. Ju, who bet heavily with Jimin, suffers a major loss. During the trophy ceremony, Mark grows emotional as he thinks of his mother.
예, 저한테도 가족이 생겼습니다. 보고 싶습니다.
The story closes with Mark representing South Korea in the World Cup, with Jin Ki proudly at his side. So the moral of the story is family is not about blood, it is about the people who cheer you on while you arm wrestle cheaters, eat a dozen bowls of Korean food, and accidentally break bus stops.